I'm mostly fine, but I feel like I still have like a tiny bit of a like ASMR husky voice from the cold.
You've got a little bit of gravel, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also a little bit hoarse because I've been doing like work presentations in a noisy, bad pizza joint. I have been using the vocal cords. On the other hand, today we get to talk about warrior cats. I
Yes.
am
We
so
should introduce
excited, honestly.
ourselves.
We should introduce ourselves and indeed the podcast. Welcome, listener, to Analysis Roulette, the show where we roll the dice and always lose, but also in some ways win. You know, it's a quantum superposition of victory states. My name is Duck. I use he/they pronouns. With me is Dia, who's gone mysteriously silent.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Do you want to try that again?
Hello. Yep, I'm Dia. I'm your other host. I use they, them pronouns. And this week I am going to be talking to you a lot about the Warrior Cat series, also known as the Warriors series.
I'm honestly very excited for this.
I I don't know how I feel about this.
Right. I'm not saying I'm a fan of these books, although I can see how they would be very grabby if I was of an age to be grabbed by them.
Yeah,
But I think they are a fascinating media product.
they're very interesting. We've both been reading some of them recently. I'm going to preface with the fact that I did not enjoy reading them was because I'm an adult, not because they are bad.
Right. Like, crucially, these are aimed at 8 to 12-year-olds. And despite our dulcet and youthful voices, we are not 8 to 12 years old.
Yeah. So we are gonna try and be very fair to them, but I will admit that I read these books for the first time at 12, and even then I was a bit too old.
I read these books for the first time for this episode, which is definitely too old.
Yeah. I was bought a set of the first three in the first series for my 12th birthday by a friend who loved them, because I wanted to talk to her about them, and I found them so boring.
That is unfortunate, because
Yeah,
I understand why you wanted those to be a fun thing to share.
yeah. And I will say they were not less boring, 15 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I read the first three because we agreed on that, and then I had a little bit more time, so I read what I think is the most recent one, which is book 5 of the latest set of 5. It's called A Starless Clan. Um, they get more boring.
I will say, so I wasn't going to read all of them because there are over 100. Um,
There's too many books to read all of the books.
I did read the first three, which is what we had agreed on, and
Mhm.
then I actually, when I read some, there are some very, very helpful fans who have produced full timelines of the entire events of the series and prequels, etc.
I love fans.
So I read a few of those, and then I did actually pick up a couple of random other books.
Yeah.
My main takeaway is
Uh-huh.
the only one I would say I actively enjoyed reading are the prequels. They were still kiddie, they were still not for me, but I don't know if it's just because they had like more ground to cover to get to the world that we see in the main series, but the
Mhm.
prequels were actually pretty fun.
That's good to know. Yeah,
Yeah.
the first three books have comparatively a fair amount of action. Um, the most recent one, d- it was meetings. It was a whole book of meetings, which I have to say isn't particularly exciting if you are an adult and they're doing like I enjoy a political epic, but even then I would like something to happen as well as the meetings. This was just meetings. The,
Yeah.
the first piece of action is 2/3 of the way through the book, and it's a cat nearly being hit by a car but dodging in time.
um,
I
we
don't
are
quite
getting ahead of
understand.
ourselves.
We are getting ahead of ourselves.
Doug,
Yes.
what is the Warriors series?
The Warriors, or the Warrior Cat series, are a collection of ghost written novels. So they are published under the author name Erin Hunter. Erin Hunter does not exist. There
Mhm.
is a collection of ghost writers who are paid to write the books at a flat fee. They won't be getting any royalties, and they do not get authorial credit. Was actually dreamt up by the commissioning editor that this was a series of books they wanted to publish. Um, they have sold very well. They are, New York Times best-selling books. Uh, Granted, that is an award made up by the New York Times and not like a statistically valid measure, but it does mean something.
Yeah.
Um, I therefore understand that they have been very popular. They came out a little late for me personally or my friends to be directly into them. Like I think the first one was published 2003,
Yeah.
which was a time when I was definitely too old to be reading this kind of middle grade fiction, like 8 to 12-year-old target
Yeah.
audience. Um,
Also, I did reach out to my friend who was the massive fan that bought me them when I was 12.
sure.
And apparently, even when I was 12, so in like the late 2000s, these were
Mhm.
a pain in the neck to get in the UK because by
Interesting.
then, which is odd because they are a like British series ish. Like they have
Yeah, I think the
English
fictional
authors.
Erin is supposed to be living here.
Yeah, and several of the ghostwriters are English.
Yeah, and you can sort of loosely tell that the setting is very non-specific, um, but you can tell it is meant to be somewhere in the UK. Like there's magpies, which are a European bird. The place names in the
Yeah,
Google maps are very
the
sort of
visuals are based
pre-English.
on the New Forest.
Yeah,
The writing was based on the Highlands, so it's sort of generically British.
yeah, it's quite non-specific in a way that I think you probably want to be for the kind of thing this is. It's not a heavily detailed world building series. This is short, easy books for middle-sized children.
Yeah,
Um, it's about cats. It's not about anthropomorphic cats, which is an important distinction. This is about literally like four-legged cats, the animals.
it makes some of
Um,
the fan art very funny.
hmm I can see that. I can see that would be true.
I
But it's
had a
about
great time
cats.
watching AMVs of the most dramatic versions.
Okay,
Um,
that
the
does
most
sound
the
good.
most dramatic moments in the series, like fan animated, like they have their own terminology for things that I call just generically AMVs. Like there's maps, there's comedy videos, whatever. I'm still gonna just call all of them AMVs, but like
Uh-huh.
they have fan animated like music videos. They have fan animated like most dramatic moments. They're
That does
amazing.
sound great.
They're really fun.
The books are broadly about. I mean, stop me when I'm rambling too much. But the books are broadly about a collection of feral cats living in woodland and associated fields, um, having intra-cat conflict. Like the meat of these books revolves around the four clans of warrior cats and the rivalries and conflicts between the clans, overthrowing bad leaders, getting a little bit culty sometimes, um, the travails of individual cats trying to grow up to be heroic warriors. Um, it's I'm trying not to be mean, but it's the books. The series starts with a pet cat being recruited to go and live with the warrior cats, and then being the best at all of the warrior cat activities and saving them multiple times over and being foretold by the ancestors to be vital to saving the clans, and it's all very racist. Like I
Yeah,
don't have another way to say this. This was the first thing I really noticed about the books. Like I knew it was going to be cats going in, and the first thing I learned was it was going to be a whole feral cats as indigenous Americans scenario.
it's dances with wolves, but cats.
Yeah, it's impossible not to notice, and it really tainted my experience of the books. Was like, oh, these are racist cats. This is the racism cats book.
Okay,
It
yeah,
made me very uncomfortable.
yeah. The clan system that the cats have is extremely tribal, and by tribal I mean based on tropes in Western literature about tribes, not
Yeah,
based on actual tribal like anthropological study.
yeah, and it's very much it's Dancing with Wolves. It's the only person who can save us is this pampered colonizer, because there is a very much an attitude that the feral cats in the woods are the indigenous people, are the natives, and the humans in their houses and the house cats are invading on that space. Um, there is such a thing as a Scottish wildcat. The cats in these books are not Scottish wildcats. They are feral
No, they
domestic
have
cats.
successfully outbred them at best.
Right. They seem to be doing very well as feral cats. There's a shocking number of them in a very small area of land, for one thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. These are the concept here is sort of inherently quite uncomfortable from that aspect. The stakes are, as you would expect, very important to the individual characters, for whom it is often life or death, but also the individual characters are a group of feral cats in some woods. The world is therefore it's a very personal world that is being saved at any given point. There is an ancestor thing. There's the Star Clan, which is the spirits of their ancestors who've died and gone to live in the Milky Way, which is in itself pretty cool. And they commune with them. In particular, the medicine cats commune with them. Like I cannot avoid to like how much this really stood out to me as like, oh, we're just reiterating a bunch of running away to live with the Native Americans and saving them from colonial dangers as a colonizer yourself tropes. And I have to say, I am pro cute animal stories. Them being cats isn't the problem. Reiterating this plot structure, apparently uncritically, with them being cats is just... it's a contrast that I kept noticing.
It's a bit odd. There's a lot that's strange about this series, and we are going to be getting into it. Very briefly, of the parts you read, what was the rough plot? Like, what is this? What is actually happening?
The rough plot is you have this house cat who is essentially recruited by the nearest clan of warrior cats, which is the Thunder Clan. They are named Thunder Clan because they live near the Thunder Path, which you and I would call a road.
Yes.
They have cute names for everything.
Not even a motorway, really.
I thought it had to be, but no, looking at the drawing, like the map.
Yeah, from context,
human
this
scale
like,
map.
isn't even an A road.
Right, this is just a regular road, like a single carriageway road.
Yep.
But they live near the Thunder Path, so they're called the Thunder Clan, and they kind of need more warriors. They're running a little low on warriors, so they recruit this pet cat, who they refer to as a kitty pet, as if it was a slur, which is very funny.
Yep. Some of the linguistic world building kills me every time.
Right. And we also should say, in terms of linguistic world building, I'm not blaming them for this. These books began to be released before Twitter and the hashtag was a thing.
Yeah.
But the names of the clans are written in camel case as if they were hashtags, so both words are capitalized, but there's no space in the middle. So it's actually Thunder Clan and Star Clan. It's very funny. And they keep it up consistently through the entire 100+ books. That's how you write these names.
You definitely understand why adults who loved these as kids are like still entertained and nostalgic about them, because a lot of what is silly about them is fun silly.
I can see myself shouting about the glory of ThunderClan while striking a pose, age 8.
Yeah.
Like, had I been the age for these books, I can see them being very sticky.
These are very, very factional as well, which helps, and they have silly made-up slurs that you can hiss at the other kids on the playground.
Yes, you will not get in trouble for calling other children kitty pets.
Like, my primary school had How to Train Your Dragon fever, and I remember a period where, like, specifically girls on the playground would run around insulting people in Dragonese.
Which nobody gets in trouble for, because it's not real words.
You're not getting told off for calling someone a kitty pet.
Right. You can have a playground war between ThunderClan and WindClan and call each other names. And it's all good fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, I cannot remember the details of the plot of this book.
To be honest,
he joins the clan. He gets his clan name, which is Firepaw, because apprentices get names with paw on the end. He learns to be a proper hunting cat. There's some kind of conflict with Shadow Clan, I think.
yes, Edgelord cat shows up, who is a cat
Edgelord.
that wears a little collar with cat and dog teeth on it, like
Yes.
little Hot Topic cat. His name
Honestly,
is Scourge.
I'm here for Scene Cat. I think Scene Cat is a great concept.
I love him.
Some kittens get stolen, I think, and they have to go and rescue the kittens.
Yep. So essentially the conflict of the first few books is Edgelord Cat trying to become the leader of a rival clans. He's trying to consume rival clans into his. He's also just trying to assassinate people. His plan is complex, and by complex I mean nonsensical.
He is a bad cat.
He is a cat. I don't expect too much politicking out of him, so that's fine.
I mean, I have seen cats, and I don't think forward planning is usually their strong point.
I mean, my cat has successfully commit arson, so
Your cat is unusually good at crime, though.
she is. She is unusually good at crime. She has successfully started a fire, which I believe is not within the capacity of most cats.
But even then, I'm not sure she had a plan for what to do next. Like, I'm not sure that the cost benefit of after I've burned the house down was something she really had thought through.
I think the benefit of burning the house down was it would annoy her like humans, and that was it. No other thoughts.
Right, which is, I would argue, a limited amount of forward planning. She had not thought about when I don't have anywhere cozy to sleep afterwards.
I mean, she's adorable. She'd get taken in right away.
She's wonderful. She's a demon. We love her.
She's evil, and I love her. But
Yeah.
yes, I am a cat lover. I have a cat. My cat is a better villain than Scourge. Is all I'm saying.
Hmm. But not as like big and menacing and in a slightly homoerotic way as Tiger Claw.
No, no. There are some interesting descriptions of the visuals of cats. I think just because there's only from a human perspective, cats don't look that different to each other if
They
they're
pretty
the
much have
same shape
colours.
and color.
Yeah.
So when they want to make a cat stick out, they have to give them like really distinctive features, and they run out of like missing eyes and interesting color patches or whatever
Notches in the
quite
ears. Yeah.
quickly, and have to start to go with like unusually long necks and things like that.
Yes. They also eventually forget how fur works. Several
Yeah,
times in the most recent book, the cats like blush in their fur.
as you
Like
do.
it's the fur that gets hot. They feel embarrassment in every hair of their pelt, and I'm like, I don't think
Yeah.
that's how blushing works. But okay,
The
there's
first
a lot about these books
series,
that is not how cats work. We should admit this.
which is
Not very
basically fine.
cat-like cats.
But yes, the first series, The Prophecies Begin, is oh god, is it
Fire will save the clan.
5 books? It's about the prophecy, which concerns Firepaw, then eventually Firestar as he works his way up through and
He gets to be
becomes a clan
Firepaw as an
leader.
apprentice. He's Fireheart as a like an adult cat, and then he's Firestar when he gets in charge.
Yes, and it basically follows his journey from kitty pet to clan leader as he sort of defeats the various villainous cats, primarily Scourge,
Sorry, but
and
that
saves
is the
his.
tagline of his ghost-written biography. Firestar from kitty pet to clan leader, and I would read it.
I would read it. I'm sure it exists. There's a lot of surplus material. Um, that's the one that we read some of. I think we both
Yeah,
did some extracurricular
yeah,
reading. You read one of the Changing Skies ones. I read a couple of random ones just based on which sounded interesting.
yeah. I
Um,
read one of the Starless clan set.
I think
At which point
there's
they have, but at that point they've migrated to a big lake, and there's 5 clans instead.
yeah, that means you missed the entire saga about the invention of atheism in this world where the gods tangibly exist and cats canonically go to hell at several points.
No, I mean the ones I was reading very much were around this particular cat does not respect StarClan and the wishes of StarClan and thinks it is silly to care what StarClan thinks.
No, yeah, there is at least one of the books concerns the establishment of an atheist colony where some, I think they're all kitty pets or some of them are, go and start their own clan and decide not to worship StarClan, and all of the other cats have to like learn to live with that because they
And
can't
just
start a war with
accept
them.
that they're just going to have to shun these ones and not go and murder them all.
Yes, the prequels also detail the invention of the warrior code, which is one of the main parts of these books. All
Oh yes,
cats have to follow the warrior code. If you don't, you get A, exiled, B, possibly murdered, and C, when you die, you go to kitty hell.
yeah. Which you don't want to go to Kitty Hell because it's nasty there.
Yeah.
It's like an evil version of a forest.
Whereas if you do follow the warrior code, you get to stay in your clan. You're a good warrior. You're rewarded with going to kitty heaven when you die. If you work your way up in the clan, you become a clan leader. Clan leaders get 9 lives from the gods. There are
Yes,
also prophecies from their gods. These are technically fantasy, and the technically is important.
yes. Although
The degree
they
to
would
which the
fit into that
fantasy
category
elements,
regardless because cute animals, even like in the same way as Redwall
yeah,
is fantasy. I mean, they're the most fantastic thing. Yeah, there's sometimes some little prophecies. There's mice in armor with swords, which is fairly fantastical. Um, Similarly, anything like this where it's like it's based around cute animals behaving in human level complex social ways,
yeah.
it
Um,
would feel like fantasy even if it technically wasn't.
I realise that we've talked mostly about setting and very little about plot. There is both so much and so little plot. Like, there
Stuff
is so
happens.
much happening, and yet so little of it sticks in my brain by the time I've finished one of these books.
Honestly, by number of words spent on it, most of what is in these books is not significant plot. There is an awful lot of descriptions of hunting trips and long walks and long conversations where nothing really moves in terms of the significant events of the book.
Yeah,
Um, they're quite lightweight in that way, where you know this may all be a conflict between two significantly opposed groups that will culminate in murder on both sides, but you would hardly notice that because that will not take up more paragraphs than looking for dandelions,
yeah.
which is
Um,
because it's a kid's book.
what I also wanted to mention is that Warrior Cats has a massive fandom and series of sort of extra media. There's graphic novels, there's
Mhm.
video games, there's apparently a movie has been in development hell for several years. Like, this is a huge franchise that is very beloved by many people,
A
including
lot of
many
people.
people who self-admittedly say, like, I no longer read the books, but the fandom is still like a huge part of my
Right.
life. It's a
A lot
big
of people
community.
slightly younger than you and me have a lot of nostalgia for these books. Fan
Yeah,
artists gets
they seem to
produced.
really, even though they came out when I was like 6, but they seem to really skyrocket a little while after their initial launch.
Yes. I suspect some of that is to do with this sort of thing is grabbier when it's an actual series than when it
Yeah,
is the first couple of books.
absolutely, yeah.
Where you can watch the story keep happening, so it can kind of draw you in more. It's a lot like a soap that way. An
Yeah,
individual,
it's very sort of it is very soap opera in a lot of ways.
yeah.
Before
It
we get into a more nuanced criticism of the Warriors series, though,
Mhm.
we need to talk about autopsies.
We need to talk about autopsies because that's what the dice told us to do to warrior
Yes.
cats.
So, rather than try to explain this through a literary lens, I'm going to read you the first paragraph of a Wikipedia article.
Please do.
An autopsy, also referred to as a post-mortem examination, abduction, necropsy, or autopsia cadaverum, is a surgical procedure that consists of a thorough examination of a corpse by dissection to determine the cause, mode, and manner of death. Or the exam may be performed to evaluate any disease or injury that may be present for research or educational purposes. The term necropsy is generally used for non-human animals. You will notice this is not a literary school of analysis.
No, we were getting silly with it.
Yes,
Something that's never been done before on this podcast.
we have never been silly before, not even once. I don't know what you're
Not
talking
once.
about. Um, However, we are going to attempt to do a serious autopsy of the Warrior Cat series, by which I mean we are going to cut it open and examine what's happened to it.
Gonna look at its parts and see if they're
Yes.
healthy.
Now, I have several little hooks to string us from to do this
hmm
analysis.
What a
Hook
wonderful
number
image.
1. The Warrior Cat series is not dead.
This is true. I perceive that there are entries being published. There are multiple books came out this year. It's not done.
There are so many Warrior Cats books. There are Warrior Cats games. There are
Yep.
Warrior Cats forums. There is a
Yep.
Warrior Cats app.
What do you do on the Warrior Cats app?
Apparently, it's just a reskin of their website to make it more easy to navigate on the go.
What's on the website that you need to navigate on the go?
It's mostly just trivia about warrior cats in a shop where you can order warrior cats.
Okay, so they have an app because everyone has an app nowadays.
Their website does have some games.
I can definitely see the benefit as a person who played a lot of Pokemon on a Game Boy in a car.
Yeah.
Like, I can see how that would fulfill the same niche.
And I would say the games, I had a look at the games. They look
Mhm.
amazing, to be fair. I can't speak to the gameplay or quality, but they look gorgeous.
Like, in terms of art.
Yeah, they just look fun. I'm like, yeah, this is what I would have loved when I was 12. I completely get why people would be into this.
Okay, I'm just gonna look because I have not looked at the art, and now I'm real curious.
It's not super realistic, but it's in that sort of like it reminded me of Wolf Quest, which I was really into when I was like 12, 13. It's sort of
I
like
think I
not super high res, but like slightly moody, semi-naturalistic. I'm into it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
I noticed that my cookie options are accept or learn more, which is bad behavior. There's a little warrior cats mini maker for making a warrior cat PFP, and I have to say they
Yeah,
are adorable.
they're all very cute. The one I'm referring to specifically is the Roblox game, which I did not play because
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Roblox.
Yeah, no, I can
Um,
see that those are, yeah, they've got a very sort of 3D cartoony. They are
yeah,
very ready to be cut out and sewn up into a plush.
I'm into them. Oh, the plushies are very controversial, actually. I had a look into this.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a whole discourse thing. Um, but yeah, I was gonna say, one, the fans are still here. The old fans are still here. The new fans are still coming.
Some of them are
And
listening to this podcast. Hi guys, thank you for joining us.
hello, thanks for giving us a shot. I want to say, like, we might make fun of these books, but I actually think they're really charming and they are fine for the age range they are aimed at.
Yes. We respect the act of fandom in all its forms is the thing, because like I still sometimes play the Pokemon games that I played when I was 8.
Yeah.
Um like you don't have to stop being a fan of a thing. It's fine. Fandom itself is a good and valuable use of your time and energy. We are
I
nonetheless dissecting your beloved thing. Sorry.
I run 2 yearly exchanges for a series of middle grade books. Like, I am not
You
above
do.
middle grade fandoms.
You do. It's been a several year quest of yours to get me to finish reading them.
Yes, so that somebody will prompt things that I actually want to write. No offense, guys. I have niche tastes, it's fine. Um, I can accept this about myself. But yes, the Warrior Cats books are alive and kicking, the franchise is alive and kicking, the fandom is alive and really kicking. Um,
The
they've
fandom's
done
doing
some
great,
damage.
honestly.
The fandom seems really fun. People seem to really enjoy this. Like I did check out some like YouTube videos, I checked out a few fan forums, and the main impression I got is that frankly the fan works are more interesting to me as an adult than the book because the
I
fan
believe
works are aimed at other adults who are also nostalgic about
right.
Warrior Cats a lot of the time.
But fundamentally you have now an adult level of interest in like plot events and stuff. Um
Yes.
a lot of the
And
fan art that I've seen has been really good as well.
there's some great fan art. I mentioned the videos. The videos, while very funny because they're all just
Because they're
cats,
just cats doing
are
heroic things.
genuinely really high quality animation. Like even some of the ones that are clearly from like kids are really well made. It's very impressive.
Shout out to warrior cats and their cat drawings because there's a classy stuff.
You sure can draw some cats.
Better than I can. I do not have good cat drawing skills.
Yeah. I spent some time in the Cats the Musical fandom, not even because I'm particularly into
Oh
it, but
man,
because I
so did
find it
I.
endlessly interesting. And you guys in Warrior Cats are better at drawing cats than the Cats fandom, for sure.
Yeah.
No offense to Cats fandom, but none of us have quite mastered what level of human
How
we're going for.
anthropomorphic to go.
Yeah, whereas the Warrior Cats people know what they're aiming at and hit the mark.
Yeah. I mean, their cats are definitely cats, whereas the cats are like also people.
Nobody knows.
No one's sure.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But yeah, the Warrior Cats is alive and kicking section is where I just want to mention the fan community seems really cool. They've had their discourses like any fan community. They've
sure.
had their moments of like stunning coming together like any fan community. But
Mhm.
mostly they just seem like they're people having a good time and getting creative.
I support them.
And also it seems like it's a lot of young people's first like experience with, collaborative, creative online fandom.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see
And
that
I
being the
think
case.
that's a good thing.
It's a good thing to fandom is good, and getting into fandom is good, and meeting people your own age who will roleplay cats with you is good.
Yeah. I'm, the last person on earth to dunk on people for having fun doing silly things on the internet.
Shout out to Neopets
Oh yeah.
forums for early fandom roleplay experiences. Some of them focused, in fact, on Cats the Musical. Like, I do not
I
have
was
any kind of
always on like
dignity.
quiz websites and they would have this section like people used to do lots of role playing in the like discussion sections of which anime boy would date you quizzes. They were
Yeah, I can
great.
believe that.
They were a
Yeah,
good time.
yeah, no, literally, Cats the Musical roleplay forums on Neopets. I do not have any high ground of dignity here.
Yeah. I will also say, while I actually do maintain that the first series is quite boring,
Hmm.
like I said, the prequels I found super fun. I
Mhm.
actually did enjoy reading them. I think partly because they just have, like I said, they have so much ground to cover. They cover the creation of the Warriors Code, and they have like little bits where they like realize you need a rule about this or that, and
Yes, they modify the warrior code sometimes.
it's just very satisfying. It's very fun. It's like it is just like little kitten politics, and I'm into that.
Right, like that inherently is a fun concept.
I honestly, my impression from the books I read, how interesting they are to read, is pretty hit or miss, and this seems to be the belief of most of the fans as well. None of them necessarily agree on which are hits and which are misses, but there are a lot of people just valiantly decrying entire series of these books.
This makes perfect sense because you have got a collection of ghostwriters. They have slightly different styles. They'll focus on slightly different things. Which version of Warrior Cats you like probably has a lot to do with which ghostwriters you're enjoying, but you don't
Yeah,
know which ones they are.
yeah. It's not even necessarily always clear who has written what.
Yeah.
It doesn't appear to be that it is one author per book. There are several books which have continuity errors even within a single sentence.
Which suggests that at least some heavy editing by somebody moving quite fast might have happened.
There has been at least one controversial fandom drama situation where somebody was like introduced as part of the writing team as like some kind of editor, and then later the authors said no, that was never an editor, nothing to do with us, just a fan.
Uh-huh.
The management is not fantastic, is what I am getting at here.
Okay.
And this
Everything
leads me
has
quite neatly to hook number 2.
hook number 2.
Warrior Cats is dead, and it was dead from the beginning.
Warrior Cats was dead to begin with?
So this is a really interesting thing about these books. The original Erin Hunter, the one who did the creation of these books, is
Mhm,
Victoria Holmes.
mhm.
The books are the result of book packaging, which I think most people have heard of by now, but I'll explain. It's when you want to have a specific type of book as a publisher in your area, and you
Mhm.
don't want to go trawling through literary agents to find someone who's already produced that. You just hire a writer and say, "We want this kind of book. Is it something
Yeah.
you're willing to do?"
You basically commission it.
Yeah.
Which has been a respectable way of acquiring art since art was invented.
Absolutely, yeah. Book packaging in specific is very common in non-fiction and middle grade to YA fiction, as well as
Yeah,
children's fiction in
that
general.
that that makes sense, especially for, like, there are kinds of nonfiction where you would expect it to be done that way because how else would you acquire a set of textbooks suitable for year 5?
Exactly.
You would commission
Um,
them.
there's been some, not necessarily controversy, but some sort of dislike towards book packaging in several
Mhm.
series because the authors in book packaging deals do not always get a great deal.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the
I
most
mean,
famous
authors
example of this is the Vampire Diaries, which like were super successful. They spawned like multiple TV shows, and the author got kicked off her own franchise
yeah, which is pretty rough.
for the publishers wanted.
Which is pretty rough.
That's brutal, man.
I mean, publishing this is a known thing, I'm not saying anything controversial here. Publishing doesn't pay authors well.
No.
That is even more true in this kind of ghostwritten thing where you don't get to have your name on the book because you are probably not getting royalties no matter how well it does. So ordinarily you only get royalties if the book does really well.
Yeah.
But on something like this, even if it becomes a multi-million bestseller, you still are not going to get royalties. You're going to get your flat fee for the initial writing of the book, and it's not going to be a high fee.
Yeah. So in the very early 2000s, HarperCollins decided that they wanted a fantasy series about feral cats. I don't know who decided this. It seems like a really specific request.
Right, I wonder if that was a committee decision or just somebody had an idea.
It's interesting because like I did actually try and work out it was something specific, and I didn't find anything. There were books in this genre because it is a genre that exists, but there weren't any that were like phenomenally successful in the year 2000 that I found.
Right, I mean, the thing that I've read that most feels like something that this might be trying to imitate is Diane Duane's Book of Night with Moon.
Yeah.
But that's from like 20 years previous. So this is clearly not trying to compete with that. It's not in the right time.
Yeah, the the books that like were to my knowledge doing well in this department in the late 90s were the Animal Arc books, which are extremely different, though do share some ghostwriters.
And I did love them.
I loved those.
I have to
I
say, I was too
obsessively
old
loved
for
them.
Warrior Cats, but I had about 12 of the Animal Arc books. They were good fun.
I had,
But
like,
they
a
were
big
focused on the
cassette collection of Animal Arc books. I used to listen to them at
Oh,
night.
hell yeah. Yeah. They'd be great on cassette.
They were great.
But they were like not that close to this because although there's a lot of animals in them, they're clearly aimed at like your horse girl, your like animal kids. They were all about the people interacting with the animals. They weren't an independent group of animal characters.
Yeah. But HarperCollins decided they wanted a fantasy series about feral cats for whatever reason. And I assume they approached multiple authors, but one of the authors they approached was one Victoria Holmes, who initially said no because she doesn't like fantasy books or cats.
I see how that could be a problem.
Um, Now, I'm about to get a little bit disrespectful, so I am going to be clear that I am making pure supposition. I have no evidence for any of this.
Right? Not based
Um,
on personal knowledge.
the author it and turned it down, but then did some playing with the concept and thought, oh, I can introduce human elements to this. I can make it a Shakespearean story, and eventually agreed to do it once she realized that she could write the kind of book she wanted to write and just have it be about feral cats. I'm not disputing that. I'm just suggesting also that if you are HarperCollins and you would like somebody to write you a book about magic feral cats, and she says, no, thank you, I do not write magic or feral cats, there are ways you could change that stance.
Right?
Like, you could.
I'm not sure do it as Shakespeare is
I just feel like it's possible that Victoria Holmes went home that night, slept on it, and went, I could make a Shakespearean epic out of this. It seems more likely to me that she maybe woke up the next day with a different number in her inbox.
right. I think I can see myself going, oh no, I don't want to write, doesn't sound fun to write. It's not my wheelhouse. And then I can see myself going away and sleeping on it and going, but a paycheck. A paycheck is my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And as you say, especially if in the morning it's a bigger paycheck, I could be persuaded. You know, my soul is for sale. There is no book I won't write if you pay me enough. It's just what constitutes enough.
Yeah. And they had originally only asked her to write one book. But what happened was she did enough world building and ideas and plot concepts for a series, and it was then sent to a different ghostwriter who wrote the first two books.
Okay, so she actually didn't do the writing of those two books, but she did all of the world construction.
I'm just saying there are many things I'm not interested in that I would do world building and plot ideas for if I didn't have to write them and I still got paid.
Yeah, I mean, writing is the worst part of writing. We know this. World
I'm just
building is like
saying.
the third or fourth worst. Like it's a lot less bad than actually having to write the sentences. Is to say, this is how cat names work.
I realise I am possibly slandering poor Miss Holmes here, but it just seems extra not really my thing. But it'll take like 2 days and the money's good. More so than, no, I don't really do fantasy or cats. And then go home and think, what if it was Shakespeare?
I mean, not only do I agree with you in principle, I also think these books are not very Shakespearean in scope.
They are not. Um,
I mean, Shakespeare wrote more than one kind of thing, but I don't think any of the kinds of thing are what this is.
yes.
Because this is a children's book about
My
feral cats.
understanding of what she meant by Shakespearean was that it had themes of doomed love, war, and religious conflict, which, to be fair, are all present in at least one Shakespeare play.
Sure,
But so are
sure.
lots of things.
Yeah, there's honestly, actually, no. Tiger Claw, I can kind of see as a sort of got a bit of the Shakespearean villain going on.
Grey Stripe, who is my personal favourite, has a whole doomed romance who, like, dies tragically.
She does. There is a, I mean, yeah. There's a little bit of the Romeo and Juliet storyline.
Yeah, it's just happening in the background, and she dies almost
It's a
immediately. We only
secondary
see her, like,
character.
twice.
She's got like 3 scenes and then she dies.
Yeah.
She basically gets fridged.
Yeah.
She
But
dies
she's
to
not important
motivate
enough to
him.
get fridged, really, because Fireheart doesn't care about her.
No, she dies to sort of motivate
He
a
straight up
very
forgets
secondary
she
character.
exists. Like, he meets
Yeah,
her, he knows that Greystripe has these kids with her, and then when Greystripe freaks out that these kids are in danger, he's just like, wait, why does Greystripe care?
yeah,
What
but
connection does Greystripe have to these cats? And it's just like,
all
Fireheart,
of
you are
this is
so
happening
stupid.
at the same time as he's totally failing to work out that the reason his leader cares about this pair of warriors from this other clan is because they're her kittens that she had to go. Even though he's got all the facts in front of her that lead to that conclusion, he can't work it out.
He is very stupid.
He is not bright.
He does not have strong interpersonal
But
skills.
we can't blame him for that because he is ginger.
This is fair.
And we know that orange cats are not
Oh, dumb.
bright. Actually, this is good world building.
But yes, anyway. Um, my point is,
Mhm.
I don't mean this as a dunk on any of the people who have done hard work to produce these books, including Victoria Holmes. Working to pay as a writer is not a bad thing. That is what pays my rent.
Right.
I do not have a
It's
passion for a lot of the things I write.
writing is art. And art, amongst its other properties as a vehicle of pure expression and imagination and all that, art is something that people like enough to pay people to make it for them. And
Yeah.
that's good and fine. And writing is art, and it is totally fine to write to commission or for a salary or anything else. In the
Yeah.
same way as, it's not. You don't have a sacred duty to only write things that are cries from the heart. You can just write a thing because you're getting a paycheck for it.
Yeah, like
It's fine.
when I lost my first real job, the next job I had was writing 80s themed pornography
Right. And it's
for
fine.
commission. I That was my first proper commission as a writer. And I will be honest with you, it is not something I'm passionate about.
It's not your thing.
Not for me. No, disco porn never been in my
Yeah.
wheelhouse.
But getting paid on this is a subject we can be very hot on.
I will write whatever the hell you freaks want, in
Honestly,
exchange for it. That is how jobs work.
I worked it out a little while ago. My whole book commission fee is £7,000 for delivery in 18 months. If you have £7,000 and you want a book, get in touch. I will
Yep.
literally write it for you.
I worked out what I get paid per word a little while
It's
ago, and
don't
it
do
made
that.
me
It's
depressed,
depressing.
so I tried to
Yeah,
forget the number.
yeah. I don't write a lot for work, but oh boy, do I read a lot for work.
Yeah,
I read
I
so many government reports.
if any of you are budding writers listening to this, ignore us. We're lying. Writing's great. We love it.
Writing is fantastic and it pays so well.
Look, jobs are just bad. I think we can agree on this.
anything is less joyful if you do it for money. But having somewhere to live, super great.
I love buying groceries.
I am honestly sometimes I feel sad about my job and then having to do it, and then I remind myself that what I get in exchange for my job is just a really good napping spot. I have worked hard to perfect my napping spot. It's so good, and it is honestly worth going to work because I'm like, yeah, but this is how I get to have my really nice bed.
All of that is to say,
Hmm.
I have nothing against, well, actually, that's not true. I have nothing against most of the people who write Warrior Cats books. Fans of
We
the
have nothing
series,
against them in concept.
that was just for you. You know who I'm talking about. Um,
Yeah, in concept, we are fine with ghost written book series.
yeah, and also like I think a lot of these people, it's not even that. It's I want to be clear. I think these people are good at their job. And I also don't
Yeah,
find it implausible that like Victoria Holmes eventually just got into it and was like, "Oh, this is kind of fun. I like this. This is really successful. People like my writing." That's a good feeling, even if it wasn't necessarily your
yeah.
biggest passion project.
And as a writer, you inevitably fall a little bit in love with anything you've been writing.
Yeah,
Like these are your characters, and you made them do the thing, and they kind of you have a more of an interest in making them do the next thing.
yeah. And I do think it's noticeable that they have done the same formula with other animals, and I can't say this is some of the authors care about a lot more than cats.
I have just
Um,
imagined warrior cats with hippos.
there's so the official Erin Hunter ones, there's bears, dogs, and lions, but
Hmm.
several of the authors have quite similar books about other animals. So there's a dragons one, and Victoria Holmes herself has a horse historical fiction series.
Okay, so I think I could have been caught by warrior cats as an 8-year-old, but like clan conflicts, leadership contests, and doomed romances and petty infighting between groups of dragons.
Yeah.
you would have had me for life.
I know, you made me read Pern.
Yeah, but Pern's got people having most of those things. If it was just the dragons, it'd be even better.
Yeah, okay. All of this is to say, when I say Warrior Cats was dead from the beginning, I don't mean any of these people has done something wrong, but I do think inherently there is something just deeply bloodless about the arrangements of these projects.
Yes, these are the
And
opposite of a passion project. These are a
I
purely
think
commercial endeavor.
as an adult, you can tell with these in a way that, frankly, as an adult, I cannot tell when I'm reading Babysitter's Club. Not that
So
I do
I
that a lot, but like, you know.
yeah, I mean it does they do feel like they were written to order.
Yeah.
Like they don't feel like anyone had any specific thing they wanted to do with this besides complete it.
What they are missing to me is a heart note of weird.
Yeah. I think I think some of the way that this feels like nobody really cared about it is that the cats are not very cat-like. I think if you came up with this project and you really, this was something that you had an enthusiasm for, I think the catness of the cats would probably have come into it. And instead, they behave
Yeah.
in distinctly uncat-like ways. I mean, by which I don't mean that they have, language and politics. I mean they do things like collectively bury a store of fresh meat for the winter, which, as far as I'm aware, is dog behavior.
Yeah.
I think if you were really led by your own enthusiasms to writing this book, I feel like the cattishness of the cats would be part of why you wanted to tell this story. The cats
I
are not very
just think
cat-like.
there are points at which you can really tell that the person who comes up with the plots of all these books but does not write them is interested in horses and dogs.
Yeah. Some of the ways in which they assume animals behave are ways that cats don't and dogs do.
They're just fun little adventure stories. Like, they don't actually have to be anything more than that. I'm just commenting that I find them a bit bloodless as a franchise.
Yes, I think there is a certain aftertaste of there's a chemical aftertaste to these books.
Yeah. Honestly, my constructive criticism for this, like my looking at this corpse and saying, "What disease is present in this body?"
Mhm.
It's that no fans were working on it.
There is, of course, the danger if you bring the fans in that what you get is new Who, which is a great thing, but does sometimes disappear up its own navel.
Absolutely, and to be fair, um, they have previously had fans get involved with the writing, and it has gone really badly. So I'm not even necessarily saying that they should have done that,
But you can tell they didn't.
but you can tell that they didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
You can just feel particularly obsessive about them. And I think you have to be a little bit weird and obsessive about things to truly understand the mind of a middle grade reader.
Kids are weird little guys with weird little obsessions. If you're gonna write for the horse girls, I think you have to be a horse girl.
Yeah.
And similarly for the cat boys.
Good. Warrior Cats is alive. We've covered Warrior Cats is dead. I would like to now posit that Warrior Cats is undead.
This makes sense as a sequence of possibilities. Speak to me of zombie warrior cats.
Okay. My first thought when I thought this was, well, yeah, that's what a ghostwritten novel is, but we actually covered that under Warrior Cats is dead.
Sure.
This is where I want to talk about just what is actually the point of this series. Obviously, it's a book, but what is the point of this kind of book?
As a media property, we understand.
Yeah. Why do they produce these huge franchises that, like, realistically, if you age into interest in this book, say when you're about 8 and lose interest when you're about 12, depending on your reading speed, you might literally not have time to read all of them in that span of years.
Yes, there is an interesting question to me of 20 years later, why are you making new ones? Like you
It's
have a
still
different
going.
audience now. This is a fully different group of people who are reading the books now than 20 years ago. Why are you not just slapping a new cover on and doing a new edition?
They also do that.
Right, but why make new ones at all? Like
Yeah.
your audience is a group of people who will never read all of the books that already exist. Why are you still making new ones?
Even the adult fans, like a decent proportion of the fans of these books, openly do not read the books.
I mean, this
and
makes
they're
sense
fine with
because,
that.
again, children's books.
Yeah, it's the same reason that I don't watch Star Wars Rebels. Like, I'm happy to find out what happened in it because I want to know what happened in canon, but the vibes are
But,
off,
but
man.
really, you're happy with the wiki at this point.
Yeah. Sorry, Rebels fans.
Again, it's not bad. It's just not for us.
I'm trying so hard not to be mean to anybody.
We're doing our best, but we are naturally very mean people.
Um, but like I was reading these books and thinking like, okay, who or what is this for? What is the purpose of this? Why does this
Yes.
exist? Explain
Why
it to
is
me like I'm a space alien.
why does this thing continue to continue?
And so I did the obvious thing and I reached out to my friend who was into these as a kid and just said, hey,
Yeah.
why did you like these? Because I found them boring and we were the same age.
Yeah.
And to be fair, she said pretty bluntly, like, they weren't that good, but like they were the kind of books I liked and cats are cute, which is a good enough reason.
That's a great reason. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I was into like sort of, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, middle grade adventure type books, and these ones had cats in them.
That's a
What more
solid
do you
reason.
want from me?
No, that is a solid reason. Especially it's a solid reason when you're 9 years old.
Yeah, like that makes perfect sense as a rationale. But I don't think that explains the success of these books because there are many things with cats in them.
Right. The world is not short of cat media
Like I
because humans historically and
personally, like,
contemporaneously, we like cats. Humans like cats.
I mean, that's the thing is, at the time when I was in the target demographic for this series, I was actually really into the Varjak Poor books, which very similarly are like cats having a little cat religion intrigue books that I just think are better written, honestly. Like, I think that's pure nostalgia glasses, but I'm going to say it anyway. I prefer the Varjak Poor books in my
I've never read
books
them,
aimed at
so
8-year-olds about cats.
I never read them. I have no evidence to the contrary. Therefore, I believe you.
They are the same age as the Warrior Cats books. There are far fewer of them because, to my knowledge, they are not ghostwritten.
It's a lot harder to churn out 100 books by yourself.
Yep, it's very difficult. It is like slightly Coraline-y. I'm very into it.
Nice, nice.
But yeah, like I was not immune to the appeal of an adventure cat book, and these ones still didn't get me, is my point.
Yeah, yeah.
So who are they getting? I have a couple of theories. One, it was never anything to do with these books. It was pure luck of the draw. These ones just happened to, happen to deliberately as a business model churn out enough that they are always visible when your 8-year-old hits the point when they are interested in cats and warriors.
Yeah. So you go to not a bookshop. We don't really have those anymore. You go to your local branch of the works.
I think grandma's still going to bookshops.
I still go to bookshops, but some
Like
things that used to be bookshops are not bookshops anymore, which is very sad.
that is sad.
Like Smith's used to have books in it. I remember W.H. Smith being a local bookshop, and now it's like magazines and
They have
pens.
like a Dan Brown sort of airport novel
Yeah.
corner, but they don't have the like sort of plethora of
Yeah, they
books
used,
they
it used to
used
be a
to.
bookshop that also did stationery, and now it's sort of the reverse.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, my point is, you go to your local branch of the works looking for a present for your 8-year-old nephew. You're right. This is probably one of the packages of books that are on the book stand,
Yeah.
along with
Like
Percy Jackson, along with like the City of Bone books. This is the one that is probably most suitable for your 8-year-old who has gotten into cats recently, or likes cute animals, or you know,
yeah. And I think
who you
also
would
like
really like to like those things.
there's a real appeal to adults in these long-running fantasies for kids in the same way that like I got a My Secret Unicorn book for multiple Christmases and birthdays from my auntie.
Yeah,
Um
the nostalgia of, oh, I remember when I was into those.
the nostalgia of I remember when I was into those and also the convenience of like this is one thing I don't have to think about this Christmas.
Yep, yep.
Like little baby Jane will love another My Secret Unicorn book just like the My Secret Unicorn book she got for her birthday, just like the My Secret Unicorn book she got for the previous Christmas. I'm not down on
This
My Secret Unicorn. They were great books.
this is
They
why
were
comics sold annuals, so that every year you could buy your nephew the latest Beano annual
yeah.
and not have to think beyond that.
The world is full of nanas who love their grandchildren but deeply do not care about children's books anymore. They did their time pretending to care about children's books when they had children.
Right.
They are
They
now
do
on
not.
round 2 of children and they're not doing this again.
They are happy to purchase whatever seems to be the thing that the kids are reading lately.
Yeah,
They do not want to know details.
exactly. I think that's one of them. I think one of the other ones is we mentioned like this is the sort of thing that is obviously fun to play in the playground, and I think we talked about this a
Yeah.
tiny bit back when we did Land Before Time.
Mm.
Um, One of the major points of children's franchises is not just to be consumed as a product or as a work of literature, but to inspire the imagination of children who are constantly looking for new things to learn and consume and frankly devour at alarming rates.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, Children, even more so than adults, and humans never stop doing this, but children especially obsessively engage in imaginative play. They are very rarely inventing something from whole cloth.
Yeah, because
You know,
that's a skill
children
you have
don't.
to learn and it's
Yeah.
hard.
Whereas going out in the playground and playing Star Wars, that's some stuff that all of you have in your heads. You all know the images, you all know the cool lines. You are already
Hmm,
in a shared universe that you can then play in. And I think this would be a fantastic, you would do a great job of giving a group of year fives a shared universe to play in. It's got naming rules, it's got little rituals, it's got
thing.
ready-made
Children
factions.
children replicate everything they see through play at one point or
Yes,
another. Like I
yes.
have vivid memories of playing Mock the Week on the playground in like year 3.
I don't think I ever did that one, but I can totally see how you could. It's got a structure to it. You could replicate it.
We used to play games based on everything. That's how kids work. Like kids
Yeah,
today will play like coronavirus based games that to adults seem
yeah.
really creepy and disturbing, but to children are
This,
just like how you process information you have learnt.
yeah, this is a mammal thing. A
Yeah.
kitten learns to hunt by playing at hunting.
And I
A
think
human
honestly,
learns to to be human and to understand stuff by playing at being an adult human who understands stuff.
and in many ways, you learn to interact with other people by playing stuff like Warrior Cats, where you just go, okay, we're all going to be in this world now. We're bored of playing family. You don't have to be the dad anymore. This now
Mhm.
you get to be, whichever your favorite warrior cat is.
Yeah, and if you don't like one, this is a setting built for inventing what they call nowadays an OC.
And I will say, while I have done some dunking on the writing quality, and we have
Mhm.
done no small amount of dunking on the world building quality, do you know what? I think they absolutely nailed this area.
Right, the names from an adult perspective seem silly, but viewed as a tool for imaginative play, yeah, the names are perfect. Like there's some a really good combination of quite strict and quite loose names. Like in terms of
Yeah,
the rules. The rules are very clear on you get the poor thing and then you get the it's always two words glued together and it's like a color and a feature or a natural thing because it expands later in the series. And then you put star on the end if you're the leader. And it's very, very easy, therefore, to build that from what you see in the playground or what you happen to like.
yeah. And I think also, the plots of the books being sort of not that important and kind of meandering make a lot more sense when you look at it through this lens. Because what the books are really doing is saying, here is a game you can play with your warrior cats friends.
Yeah, yeah. And viewed as describing a playthrough of a Warrior Cats game rather than describing a plot as its own, a plot for its own sake. The books are introducing you to a sequence of things that can happen in the Warrior Cats world. You can go hunting. You can go out training. You can go out scouting. You can go to a gathering. You can have a little skirmish.
Yeah.
These are things that you can do when you're playing Warrior Cats. They also sort of technically string together in something called a plot, but mostly, here are examples of what Warrior Cats do.
Yeah. And they also give you a really broad range of times, places, and sort of emotional settings which your play can take place in.
Yeah, yeah, like the book two or three, I think book three has one of the clans sort of being displaced and
I
Fireheart
think that's
having to
3,
go and
yeah.
find them and bring them back.
Just on a really
Um,
basic level, they take place in different seasons. Some of them
yeah,
take place in a forest, some of them take place in a lake. Not in, near.
is it nearly? Well, this is what I
The
mean is that
one where all the cats drown horribly.
you've got that sort of this is the point where this clan is refugees and they are hiding on the far side of the road in like a little wasteland area.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you in this case. I spent some of my childhood playing in what I can best describe as a wasteland area.
Yeah,
It would be kind of nice to be like, ah, yes, like when the Wind Clan had to go and hide.
exactly. And there are like multiple books where like a different clan has moved to a different area, or like a new group of kitty pets have decided to live in the forest, and all of
Right, or
these
we've
things.
got
It's like,
someone from this clan is living with that clan, so that one person who never wants to be a character who fits in when you're playing can be the slightly mysterious visitor from Shadow Clan.
yeah. And there's apprentices. So if you've got an annoying younger sibling who insists on playing with you, as annoying younger siblings are wont to do, you
They
can
do
say,
do that.
okay, but you have to be my apprentice. So your name has to have paw in it, and you have to do whatever I say.
You have to do what I say.
Like in the same way that like when you were like relatively unpopular as a child, I think I've aged enough that I can say this and people won't feel bad for me. I was made to be the dog in a lot of
Oh,
games
honey.
because no one actually wanted to talk to me.
I honestly don't remember playing House in the kind of way that people would get roles. I do remember quite a lot of, for some reason, when I was in year five, we were big into carriage horse roleplay
Interesting.
and like going clippity clop.
Me and my like best friend in like year 5 or 6. I can't remember what book we'd read, but we'd read a book that involved at one point the main character had caught a fairy in a jar, and we took it in turns to be the fairy caught in a jar in the bottom half of her bunk beds for about 3 months every single day after school.
That, yeah, children. Children really fixate on slightly odd games.
That is,
It's just a thing.
yeah, like this is just what kids do, and I think the Warrior Cat series actually absolutely mastered it, and I think that leads directly to why the undead part of Warrior Cats is that it has this massive, sprawling franchise and fandom potential, despite, again, not uniquely poor, but also not uniquely great middle grade books.
Pretty average,
They're
honestly.
they're bang on average. They're fine. Some of them are particularly bad. Some of them are surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Especially the standalones. Actually, the standalones seem to be a lot more hit and miss than the main series books. A couple of the standalones are almost unreadable, and then a couple of them actually kind of fuck.
Which makes sense again because they'll be written probably by an individual writer working on a longer form piece,
Yeah,
and the quality of their writing um, will
more
have more of an
evident.
impact on the ultimate product.
Yeah. But like the things that this is the thing. We are all basically just big kids when it comes to the things we love. The things that make warriors fun to play on the playground because you get to call people kitty pets and decide which clan you're in, and you making warriors fan art and fic and playing in the forums and doing role plays fun.
Right, the imaginative stickiness never really goes away. Things that give rise to big fandom engagement are often things where you can assign yourself to a faction, where you can do meta-analysis on the patterns the work gives you. Like one of the reasons that Homestuck really took off when the trolls came into it, because the trolls were a character creation framework.
Mm.
You could have a troll sona. Anything where you
That
can have a sona, where the thing is built so that you can create yourself a sona, that's going to have a sticky fandom.
exactly, and like even if you're not into the original thing, you're probably gonna see all of your friends have like troll sonas and be like, I wonder what my troll sona would be.
Right. You have troll sonas, you can have cat sonas, pony sonas.
If nothing else, especially when you're like in your, I'd say peak time for this, for me at least, was like early to mid teens, you are just going
Yeah.
to get constantly asked.
Yes. Because that is a point where humans are working out.
This is a way you
Yeah,
interact
yeah.
with other human beings at certain points.
Right. And especially in that sort of early to mid teen years, you are literally creating an identity for yourself. You're working out what it is to be a person and what kind of person you are. And it is both freeing and grounding to have this free choice of a list of 6 kinds of person and to get to assign yourself based on your internal feeling of who you are to one of those things. Because up until then, everything is the groups that you are in have been assigned for you.
Yeah.
You are in this school and this house and this year group and this part of the world.
Yeah.
You get to a point in your teenage years where you start really taking an interest in both what those things you've been assigned tell you about yourself and what you know about yourself such that you can put yourself in a cat's faction. You can decide for yourself whether you're a Jedi or a Sith,
Yeah,
but
and
with
that's
no
the
actual
thing.
stakes, which is important because you're 14 and this is a game still.
That's the thing. When I say that Warrior Cats is undead, what I mean is Warrior Cats is alive the way that a coral reef is alive.
Hmm.
It is kind of a self-sustaining ecosystem to which the physical thing that has been produced is actually tertiary.
Yeah.
Because what Warrior Cats has created is a world of Warrior Cats which is really fun to exist in. And frankly, the fact that the books seemed a bit boring to me when I read them at 12, if I had, instead of being given the books, been sent a "What kind of warrior cats are you?" Quizilla page, I might have forced myself to be more interested in the books just so I could exist in that world.
Right.
And that makes
Right.
perfect sense.
Right. It is undead in the sense of it has always been dead, but it is a corpse designed for you to shamble around it.
Yes.
You are
I also
intended
think,
to possess the corpse of warrior cats. That's what it's for.
yes. And you are supposed to do necromancy on the school playground.
Hell yes.
I think that's the most
If you
neatly I've ever turned around my analysis in this, by the way. I'm very proud of myself.
if you don't make weird potions on the playground, what's even the point?
Oh, it's weird because everyone's like, "Oh my god, I was such a weird kid. I played such strange games." And I'm like, I vividly remember our favorite game was called Evil Witch. And Evil Witch, basically anything she touched turned from the good version of what it was to an evil version of what it was. And we would spend hours arguing about what the evil version of like a bus stop was.
That's a great game.
Yeah, we used to take it in turns being the evil witch, and everyone had to try and stop you from touching stuff. And then when you touched stuff, you all had to agree on what the evil version of that thing was. And
That's
you could
amazing.
touch people and turn them into evil minions, and people had to touch them to make them good again.
No notes. Perfect.
Yeah. Um, Kids like having complicated worlds and they don't have to make that much sense. Kids like having factions to play with. Kids like having like ideas about how they can create play and structure play.
Yeah,
And Warrior Cats
absolutely.
is absolutely perfect for it.
It's better at that than it is at being novels, I think.
And I don't think it was ever intended to be that good at being novels.
No, I think that's probably true. One of the things that makes a novel a good novel is a kind of specificity and unrepeatability that is opposite to here is a world you can play around in.
Yeah.
You know, the best. This is a long-standing sort of theory: is that the best, on a technical level, the best original work produces the least fandom, because what makes fandom is the gaps. And I think that's partly true, but I also think what makes fandom is this kind of a world, not just where there are edges you can build in, but where there is, it's like a fractal, where there is an edge where you can see how to continue the structure.
Exactly, yes. And I think also there's if I were to write an adult version of Warrior Cats, I wouldn't write a book. I would write a guidebook for a tabletop campaign.
Yes, yes, absolutely. This would be a great tabletop campaign, partly because this you could turn Warrior Cats into the kind of game where you have like a 2-page summary of all of the rules.
Yeah.
You could also turn it into a 200-page. Here is the rich setting backstory of what's up with the ancestor clans
And
and
that,
cat
because you
hell,
asked me this earlier and I didn't tell you, is what I think the point of the app is.
is to give you the deep lore.
If you're 12 these days, you probably have a smartphone or at least a phone
Yeah,
that can access the internet.
yeah,
If
I
you're playing
understand the
Warrior
context.
Cats with your friends out in the park and one of them wants to know, I think the Star Clan can do this, and someone says that it can't do that, you can look it up on your reference guide. That's why you've got the Warrior Cats app.
That's why the Warrior Cats app. It's a portable reference guide for your imaginative play. I
And
like it.
honestly, I think that more tabletops should encourage you to just take a portable reference guide and go and LARP it in the park.
We should just encourage LARPing in general. It's healthy exercise in the outdoors, and you get to be a wizard. And I think we should encourage healthy exercise in the great outdoors while being a wizard. Some of the best times of my life, I've been pretending to be a wizard.
That is pretty much my autopsy of Warrior Cats. It was always dead and it was always intended to be. Nothing happened to it. This is what it's supposed to be like.
We've done this entire autopsy, and what we've discovered is this is a mannequin. It's not dead. It's a puppet. You're meant to play with it. That's what it's for. I like it. I find this convincing.
I actually think like I got quite far into the books just going like I don't want to just tear these books apart. It feels so mean. They clearly make kids happy and adults clearly remember them fondly.
Right, that's the thing, is it's easy to genuinely, it is easy to like poke fun at things that are for
Oh, I
8-year-olds.
could have if I had decided to do that, I could absolutely have filled 2 hours just with dunking on warrior cats. It would have
Right.
been really fun.
But crucially, it's been 20 years they're still making this thing. So it would be easy and funny, but it wouldn't be accurate.
No. Um and people really like it. Like a lot of the kids I've volunteered with who were warrior cats kids, I don't know anyone who was casually into warrior cats. They were warrior cats kids full time.
Yeah, I could see that.
And like
I could see this living in your brainstem.
I don't want any like 9-year-old to go and look up warrior cats and find our podcast and it's just us calling them stupid for an hour.
No, absolutely not. And especially because you're 9 and
If you're listening to this and you're 9, I mean, like, congratulations for being willing to expand your horizons because this has
yeah,
autopsy in the title.
right? It does. Um, and honestly, your attention span,
Yeah, we've been
because
talking for a while.
the style of things that you want to read when you are 9 are different to the style of things I want to read in my mid-30s. That
This is the
doesn't mean
thing.
I'm right and you're wrong. That means we are different people.
And honestly, like, I like slightly made fun of Victoria Holmes earlier, but like, you know what? Hats off. I have no idea how she made this happen, but she really made it happen.
Somebody created this. It's still going. It's impressive as a commercial work.
And she didn't get Vampire Diaries.
No, which again is a thing that publishing can do to you.
Okay.
Okay,
I think
so
we've
first,
actually wrapped up really
I
neatly.
think we
I'm very
have.
proud of myself.
So, do we want to put warrior cats back in the hat?
No, I'm not reading any more of these.
Ah,
Are
what
you
would you like to?
joking?
In which case, we need to replace it with something.
I need to figure out what section it was in. Hang on. Oh, it was in the nerd staples. Yeah, I can make this happen. Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to have a think about it, but I am very
Yeah,
happy to
have a
replace
think.
that.
But there's a lot of things that can go in nerd staples.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Okay.
Speaking as a
Um,
nerd, we're into so many things.
do you wanna roll some die?
I want to roll some dice. Okay, how many schools of analysis have we got?
We have 4.
4. A four-sided dice is a thing that can actually exist, listener.
Yes. You could theoretically actually roll a dice right now.
I could, but they're like over there behind me and not here in front of me. I rolled a 2.
Retrosynthetic.
Ah, this'll be interesting. Um, that's sort of what archaeological can be that I misunderstood. It's a school of chemical analysis where you take a thing and you repeatedly break it into sections to see how you could make it,
You've explained to me this 3 times.
and it doesn't stick.
Still no idea. Still nothing.
Okay, I'm gonna roll 101-sided dice and see what I'm doing this to.
Okay.
Low numbers, 6.
The Chalet School.
Ooh. Well, I'm gonna have to look at some timelines.
I have been trying to read The Buried Giant for like a month, and I keep having to read Warrior Cats instead. Now I have to read The Chalet School.
I mean, the Chalet School is just a warrior cats from a previous era.
It is. I wonder how annoying the Chalet School girls were on the playground.
Probably very. Um, although I'm gonna say we're only gonna read one Chalet School book because I think it's gonna be more interesting to look at bits and pieces of things other things that I'll bring up when I work out time, because I'm gonna have to look at timelines because I know some things that Chalet School went on to become. Where it came from is an interesting historical question, which I will probably get wrong. But that's what we're here for, is me being wrong.
Woo! Team
Okay.
being wrong.
Team Wrong will reconvene for a retrosynthetic analysis of the Chalet School.
Awesome. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I had a really fun time with Warrior Cats. Not reading
I, I,
it, but thinking about it.
I genuinely I looked forward to this episode. This was fun to do.
This was really fun. I hope we have as good a time reading the Chalet School and, in my case, learning chemistry against my will.
There will be a minimum of chemical content. I am a chemist saying that. My definition of minimal may not be yours,
I
but I'll
suspect.
do my best. Okay.
Okay.
See you next time, listener. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Analysis Roulette, a podcast applying a randomly selected mode of analysis to a randomly selected creative work, just to see what happens. Your hosts have been Dia and Duck. You can find us on Spotify or on YouTube, and if you'd like to get in touch, you can send us an email at analysisroulette@gmail.com. And remember, if you like our show, share it with your friends, and if you don't like our show, share it with your enemies. Thanks.